I resume my function as President of the Council, and I give the floor to the representative of Germany.
Thank you, Mr. President, for convening this meeting on Resolution 2231. Like other delegations, I would like to thank Under-Secretary General Rosemarie Di Carlo for the SG report and for her valuable briefing today. In September this year, this Council sent an important signal, a signal that Iran is held accountable for its continued severe non-compliance with the JCPOA. This underscored the unwavering resolve of the international community to uphold the integrity of the global nuclear non-proliferation architecture and to enforce the nuclear safeguards of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Mr. President, Germany and the E3 remain committed to pursuing a diplomatic solution in order to resolve the strong concerns about Iran's nuclear activities. And here I want to echo what my colleagues from France and the UK have said today in this meeting, and many others, by the way, and what my delegation has consistently said in many meetings in the Council on this matter, that our door remains open for dialogue. But in the meantime, we must focus on 3 points. First, the Security Council has to agree on a chair of the 1737 Sanctions Committee. The panel of experts must start working as soon as possible. The independent assessments are vital for transparency and effective monitoring of the reinstated restrictive measures which the Security Council has agreed upon. It is our conviction that the reinstated UN Security Council resolutions are not an end in themselves. They are tools, a tool to encourage constructive engagement and to create conditions for meaningful progress. For that matter, they need to be implemented comprehensively. Second, since the Council remains seized of the matter under UN Security Council Resolution 2231, we need to ensure that this threat to peace and security receives the necessary collective attention. The Council should therefore retain its established practice of semi-annual meetings. Third, we call on Iran to urgently resume full cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. This is a legal requirement under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and Iran's Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement. We further call on Iran to re-engage in diplomacy in order to address the international community's concerns over its nuclear program. Because ultimately, and here I repeat what I said in the beginning, a comprehensive solution can only be established through dialogue. Mr. President, Germany, with its E3 partners, France and the United Kingdom, has been engaged in diplomacy with Iran over its nuclear program for more than 20 years. We will continue our diplomatic efforts to address all concerns associated with Iran's nuclear program, because it is and it remains in all of our interest that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Germany for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the European Union.
Thank you for giving me the floor. I'm honored to address the Council today on behalf of the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Mrs. Kaja Kallas. I would like to thank Secretary General Antonio Guterres, USG Di Carlo, and the rest of the Secretariat for their work related to the implementation of Resolution 2231, as well as Slovenia for their efforts in carrying out the role of the facilitator of Resolution 2231. We take note of the 20th report of the Secretary General on the implementation of Resolution 2231. Mr. President, this session takes place in the context of the reinstatement by this Council of its resolutions in force prior to the JCPOA, and thus of all nuclear-related UN sanctions and restrictions on Iran. This followed the invoking of the snapback mechanism by France, Germany, and the UK, who notified the Security Council on the 28th of August of Iran's significant non-compliance with its commitments under the JCPOA. There should be no doubts on the validity of this process and on the obligation for all UN member states to fully implement the reinstated resolutions. However, the snapback of sanctions and nuclear restrictions must not be the end of diplomacy, quite the opposite. The European Union and its member states are convinced that a lasting solution to the Iranian nuclear issue can only be achieved through diplomacy. To this end, the European Union remains determined to continue to engage with all parties to find a negotiated and sustainable solution to the issue, in line with the reinstated Security Council resolutions. Mr. President, for the past 10 years, the JCPOA and Council Resolution 2231 established a framework that not only aimed to ensure that the Iranian program remains exclusively peaceful, but also put in place an effective monitoring and verification system conducted by the IAEA. The JCPOA represented a key contribution to the global nuclear non-proliferation architecture, as well as an achievement of multilateralism and nuclear diplomacy. Amid increasing challenges, the successive EU High Representatives have spared no effort to preserve this framework in the interest of international peace and security. High Representative Kaja Kallas has pursued intense diplomatic contacts, including during the 30-day timeframe foreseen in the snapback process, to avoid the situation we are currently facing. We welcome the efforts of a number of other states aiming to facilitate diplomacy. Ensuring that Iran does not acquire or develop a nuclear weapon remains a key security priority for the EU and all its member states, as it is for the entire international community. The EU reiterates its full support for the impartial role of the IAEA and for its Director General in their critical work to uphold the implementation of safeguards, nuclear safety and security, and to provide clarity on Iran's nuclear program. In November, IAEA DG Grossi reported that the agency had lost continuity of knowledge in relation to the previously declared inventories of nuclear material in Iran, including low and highly enriched uranium. Iran's implementation of its safeguards agreement cannot be suspended under any circumstances, and this situation is very concerning. The European Union calls on Iran to return to full compliance with its legal obligations under the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons and its binding comprehensive safeguards agreement. It is critical and urgent that Iran provide the IAEA with up-to-date and verifiable declarations on the quantity and whereabouts of nuclear material and related activities, and allow the resumption of inspections of all its nuclear facilities, including those affected by military strikes in June 2025. Mr. President, it's the intention of the High Representative to remain engaged with all relevant parties, including Iran, in support of political and diplomatic efforts to find a negotiated solution. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Thank you. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, Mr. President, at the outset, I wish to state clearly Iran's position regarding the convening of this meeting. We associate ourselves with the position of the Russian and Chinese colleagues and firmly object to the convening of this meeting. Security Council Resolution 2231 contains a clear, deliberate, and self-executing termination clause. This resolution expired on 18 October 2025. As of that date, it ceased to have any legal effect or operative mandate. Accordingly, the Security Council rules under the Resolution 2231 came to a definitive end. There is therefore no mandate for the Secretary General to submit any report, no mandate for the Council to hold discussions on it, and no legal basis whatsoever to convene a meeting under the agenda item non-proliferation in this context. Any attempt to convene such a meeting constitute a clear violation and abuse of the Council's procedure. Likewise, any claim of the continued operation or implementation of Resolution 2231, whether by invoking Note 44 of the President of the Council or by vague reference to so-called established practice, is legally unfounded and misleading, and amounts to a clear abuse of this Council authority and process. Mr. President, I wish to express Iran's appreciation to China and the Russian Federation for their principled position and their faithful commitment to the JCPOA throughout its implementation. We also thank Algeria, Pakistan, and other Council members who have taken principled and independent positions. What we are witnessing is not a legitimate disagreement over interpretation, but a calculated distortion of Resolution 2231, the deliberate dissemination of disinformation regarding Iran's peaceful nuclear program, and a cynical attempt to abuse this Council for their narrow political interest. Against this backdrop, I wish to make 4 points. First, the root cause of the current situation are clear and did not emerge overnight or in isolation. They lie in the unilateral withdrawal of the United States from the JCPOA in 2018, the sustained and deliberate non-compliance of the 3 European countries with their commitments, and the subsequent military aggression by the United States and the Israeli regime against Iran's peaceful safeguard nuclear facilities. The war of the aggression launched by the United States and Israel, including deliberate attacks on facilities under IAEA safeguard, constitute a blatant violation of Article 2 of the UN Charter and the peremptory norm prohibiting the use of force, and represents a direct assault on the international non-proliferation regime. The situation is further aggravated by the explicit and public admission of the President of the United States, a permanent member of the Security Council and the depositary of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, what Washington led, directed and coordinated this war of aggression. Any attempts to justify this unlawful act through a distorted interpretation of Article 51 of the Charter or by invoking a fabricated claim of imminent threat is legally unfounded, misleading, and constitute one of the most dangerous abuses of international law in recent history. Article 51 of the Charter permits self-defense only in response to an actual armed attack, not speculative or hypothetical threats. Equally disturbing is the silence, and in certain instances, the implicit endorsement of the 3 European countries in response to this act of aggression. They have no credibility whatsoever to invoke non-proliferation norms or to claim concerns for the integrity of the non-proliferation regime. Second, Iran has been a faithful and responsible party to the NPT since 1970. Iran has consistently rejected weapons of mass destruction on legal, moral, and doctrinal regard, a position reaffirmed constantly at the highest level. Despite unlawful sanction, sabotage, assassination of its nuclear scientists, and armed attack, Iran has never diverted its nuclear program to military purposes. Iran's program remains exclusively peaceful and subject to the most extensive verification regime applied to any non-nuclear weapon state. Yet the role has been deliberately reversed. The victim is treated as the perpetrator. Iran is punished, and those who attack IAEA safeguard nuclear facilities enjoy complete impunity. This blatant double standard gravely undermines the integrity, credibility, and authority of the global non-proliferation regime. Despite these circumstances and grave violations, Iran acts in good faith and continue to cooperate with IAEA. On 9 September in Cairo, Iran's foreign minister signed a memorandum of understanding with the IAEA Director General, an initiative welcomed by the agency and many states as a constructive first step. Additional proposals were later presented here in New York by Iran's foreign minister. All were ignored. France and the United Kingdom choose escalation over diplomacy, acting in alignment with Washington instructions while blocking genuine diplomatic affairs, including the responsible initiative put forward by China and Russia. Furthermore, they acted in a bad faith by ignoring Iran's constructive cooperation with IAEA, deliberately omitting key facts, and tabling another politically motivated resolution at the IAEA Board of Governors in November 2025, while pressuring members to support it. This was done to manufacture a crisis rather than resolve one, and it effectively ended both diplomacy and the Cairo Agreement. Third, regarding claims that the so-called snapback or reinstatement of termination sanctions resolution has been triggered, Iran's position is clear, consistent, and firmly on the record, including in its official communication to the Secretary General and the President of the Council. This position has also been explicitly shared by other members, including China and Russia. The E3 have been in sustained and publicly acknowledged significant non-performance since 2018, and therefore lack any legal standing to invoke such a mechanism. Moreover, the Security Council procedural inaction in September neither validate nor remedies this fundamental defect. The Council made no determination that legal conditions for the so-called snapback were met. Under international law, defective or invalid procedures cannot create legal rights or obligations. Let me state once again Iran's position in clearest possible terms. Resolution 2231 terminated definitively on 18 October 2025. As of that date, all nuclear-related provisions, measures, and restrictions were permanently terminated. The Security Council concluded its consideration of the Iranian nuclear issue, and the agenda item non-proliferation was removed. Any attempt by any state or body to revive, reinterpret, or enforce these terminated provisions is null and void, without legal effect, and constitute a clear abuse of this Council authority and processes. Fourth, Iran remains fully committed to principled diplomacy and genuine negotiations. It will never submit to coercion, intimidation, or political pressure. It is now incumbent upon France, the United Kingdom, and the United States to reverse course and take concrete, credible steps to restore trust and confidence. The core principles of the JCPOA remain indisputable and valid. Verifiable assurance that Iran's nuclear program is exclusively peaceful in exchange for full recognition of Iran's right under the NPT, including the right to uranium enrichment, the lifting of all sanctions, and the normalization of Iran's economy and integration into the international trading system. These principles remain entirely applicable and can provide a solid foundation for a new agreement. The essential objective is unchanged. Iran's nuclear program must remain exclusively peaceful, and Iran stands ready to provide such assurances. If France and the United Kingdom are sincere in their declared commitment to diplomacy, they should press the United States to follow this path. If they instead continue to adopt Washington's failed zero-enrichment policy and deny Iran in unalienable right under the NPT, diplomacy will be effectively destroyed. The selective invocation of the UN Charter and the pursuit of the so-called peace through strength approach only undermine the rule of law, replacing it with the law of the jungle. In closing, Mr. President, I wish to thank the outgoing members of the Council, Algeria, Guyana, and the Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, and Slovenia, and congratulate them on the successful completion of their two-year term. I would like to commend in particular Algeria and Guyana for their principled and independent conduct throughout their tenure. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Islamic Republic Iran for the statements and also for the nice words addressed to the outgoing members of the Council. The representative of the United States has asked for the floor to make further statement. Please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. There's a couple things that I wanted to address in the statements from the Iranian representative just now, especially firstly as it relates to 2231 and if it is still active. The resolution did not expire with the conclusion of the snapback process, nor the original termination day of October 18th. Our focus, however, the United States of America focus, is on the more relevant and comprehensive restrictions that need to be reinstated in the UNSCR. So we wanted to make that clear on 2231. Also, since you decided to address the President of the United States, would like to make it clear to the entire world that the United States remains available for formal talks with Iran, but only if Tehran is prepared for direct and meaningful dialogue, direct and meaningful. We're not going to negotiate in public, of course, not here. We have been clear, however, about certain expectations for any arrangement. Foremost, there can be no enrichment inside of Iran, and that remains our principle. I've worked for President Trump in 2 administrations now, and I can tell you, in both administrations, President Trump extended the hand of diplomacy to Iran. But instead of taking that hand of diplomacy, you continue to put your hand in the fire. Step away from the fire, sir, and take President Trump's hand of diplomacy. It's extended to you.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. Sorry? Okay. The representative of France has asked for the floor to make further statement. I give them the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I will be brief. I wanted to take the floor once again, France, to reiterate 3 points. The first point has already been said, but I want to repeat it nonetheless. It is very clear that, given the vote in September in this Council, the item is still on the Security Council's agenda, and it is within the remit of the Security Council to continue to consider this question. My second point, listening to what was said by the representative of Iran, I'm struck by 2 points. Firstly, disinformation is at the heart of what we've just heard. There's no intention to coerce on behalf of the E3, to coerce Iran. Once again, we have shown in the past and recently in September our resolve to find a diplomatic, negotiated solution. It's up to Iran to show the peaceful nature of its nuclear program, as the IAEA is calling for and has called for repeatedly for some years now, and has done so recently in the autumn. We are not exerting any pressure, so we're not going over and beyond that request to cooperate with the IAEA sustainably and in good faith. We also expect that Iran, during these meetings, comment on a number of facts that are in the IAEA reports and are taken up again in the Secretary General's report on the implementation of 2231. I'd like to say that France is very disappointed to have heard no substantial responses regarding the Secretary General's report. Thank you.
I thank representative of France for the statement. The representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran has asked for the floor. I give them the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I think that, as mentioned, the representative of the United States, we appreciate any fair and meaningful negotiation, but insisting on zero enrichment policy, it is contrary to our rights as a member of the NPT. And it means that they are not pursuing the fair negotiation. They want to dictate their predetermined intention on Iran. Iran will not bow down to any pressure and intimidation, and we are not going to blackmail to the body in international field. Thank you.
I thank representative of Islamic Republic of Iran for the statement. Representative of Russian Federation has asked for the floor to make further statement. I give him the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very brief, replying to what has been just said by a representative of France. I said it in my statement when I spoke, and I would like to repeat it. You failed miserably in your so-called diplomatic efforts to strike a deal on the nuclear issue with Iran, and you know it. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for the statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.